What's going on?
Jake Fischer of Yahoo Sports
My
joining us
connection.
here.
I'm sorry, man.
What was
Let
that?
me let me close out of some tabs here because this is tough.
Oh no, I mean
All right.
it's okay. It's clearing out a little bit here, but Jake Fischer of Yahoo Sports, author of Built to Lose: How the NBA's Tanking Era Changed the League Forever. Welcome to the Kings Court, man. Welcome, and thank you for making your Kings Court debut. I appreciate having you on.
You got it, man. Sorry for the difficulties in making it happen, but glad to be here.
Hey, I just appreciate having you on, man, because you recently wrote an article with an interview with both De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis, and honestly, I've read it through it twice, and I just feel like they are really. And I just said it just a few moments ago. Like when I got done reading your article, it just felt like the two are just in sync in terms of where they are in their lives and why this pairing just makes sense. But after your conversation with both of them, what was your biggest takeaway?
That was kind of my hypothesis going into it, right? I think ultimately before I try to sit down with the actual subject of a story, I try to talk to as many people as I can who I know, who are around them, or at least know them a little bit to try to get a better sense of what to ask them because you only get sometimes 10, 15 minutes with a person before it's kind of your task to tell their life story to the world, which is a little bit absurd. So
Yeah.
I feel like you really need to kind of come in there with like a fine tooth comb, if you will. So I kind of had that sense going into it. I was surprised at how sometimes when you kind of have this idea of a general topic you want to talk about, sometimes the players are like, yeah, I guess, or they don't really even agree with you sometimes. So when you start having those conversations and they're really on board and they complete that you have read the room right, that is how they're going about their business and what they're experiencing. It can be a pretty cool conversation. Yeah.
when when you were listening to Demontis speak and talking about Sacramento and finding a place, to just kind of relax a little bit after games, did it kind of seem like he was, planting a flag here in Sacramento? Like this is going to be a place where he's going to want to re-sign and stay.
I do think so. I mean, he's obviously, approaching free agency. It's not something that I think's on the immediate radar of the NBA, but like it is a thing I'm sure Kings fans are very much well aware of and are hoping that will not become an issue. And look, I do think to your point that as long as they continue on this trajectory, as long as I mean, these guys want to win. They said it up and down the piece. They said it. I mean, everyone here wants to win. And the truth of the matter is if they don't make at least a play-in appearance, there could be some wholesale changes to a lot of the infrastructure of this team, right? So who's to say how long Domas would even get the opportunity to plant his flag, in his own right? But I think clearly why I wanted to go to SAC, why I wrote the story, why where they are, they seem to really be on that trajectory. The offense is very very real, and um, I think I mean everyone I've spoken to from rival teams about the Kings have all echoed the same thing that this offense is dangerous, it's scary, and for that they're going to be a playoff team, or they're at least when healthy and how they're moving, they are a playoff team, and they're going to be I think for the coming years, as long as they continue to have Kevin Herter and Keegan Murray develop into like a rounded out core around that duo. And I do think Domas will be very amenable to making Sacramento his long term home. And I think he wants it to be. It seems like that's everyone's goal here.
So, like, this is a big thing for me when you're talking with these players because, like, with Fox, he's been here for a few years, right? He got drafted by the Sacramento Kings in like 2017, so he's been able to feel and get the sense of the cloud that is hanging over the franchise of that 16-year playoff drought. Sabonis has only got traded here in February. You have Herter, you have Monk, and all these other guys that came from separate teams. Do they still feel the pressure of what I think Sacramento fans put on the franchise about breaking this 16-year drought? Or do you feel like they're having a breath of fresh air because of Coach Mike Brown and what they brought in, and just because the offense is playing so well?
Yeah, I don't think it's pressure. I think it's an excitement. I think they see a mountaintop that hasn't really been mounted in a while or summited in a while, and they want to be the ones to do it. And I think that was a big part of De'Aaron Fox's free agency pitch. to Malik Monk as they were trying to recruit him away from the Lakers because Monk did want to go back. He had
Yeah.
interest there. But Sack obviously had a lot more money to spend and his teammate from Kentucky. But one thing that really pushed the needle, I believe, is you know, Fox selling Monk on this chance to be the ones to light the beam. And I mean, they didn't know about the beam at that point, but to be the ones who could move this team into a playoff picture that they haven't seen in over a decade, right? So I think it's not pressure on the players and the coaches that are in this fun new year. I think the traveling party, the people who are sitting on the court game night, I think they're just having a blast.
Jake, you said light the beam. Let me bring us to the beam real quick. Let's bring us to the beam real quick. You know what I mean? Like, I'll put us right there just so everyone can see that thing. You know what I mean? Let's put
It's
the
great.
beam out there with all of us. Uh, while I have this little
Amazing.
bit
It
of
really is. It really is.
yeah, the beam team is fun, man. I think it's awesome that they're trademarking it. I think it's just such a it feels more like a college vibe as well when you're seeing them light it and the excitement
Yeah.
that fans get. It just feels like a college atmosphere. While I do have time with you as well, the built to lose, how the NBA's tanking era changed the league forever. You're starting to see teams starting to be in the in between stage of what direction are they going to go in. Tell me what made you want to write this book. Tell me all about this book. Tell me what made you go ahead and go become an author. You know what I mean? This is a lot.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I was coming up as a reporter and a writer at Liberty Ballers at SB Nation and Slam Magazine as well. But I was at LB for the majority, I mean, pretty much the entirety of Sam Hinkie's tenure covering or running the Sixers. And I was in Boston at school at Northeastern at that time while I was blogging about, but I'm from Philly originally. So I was also up close and personal with the Celtics trading Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce the same night on draft night that the Sixers traded Drew Holiday for an injured Nerlens Noel in that 2013 draft. So then it just kind of kept peeling back the layer more, and the Kings become very involved, right? Where they're in the same draft that the Sixers got Evan Turner, who was like their last failed, tanking hopeful prince that would be promised and take us there, right? Same draft as DeMarcus Cousins um, going to Philly or going to Sacramento, excuse me. And I have a fun story in there that like Doug Collins, the Sixers head coach, is basically the reason why DeMarcus didn't go too. Like a little fun fact there for some Kings fans. There's a ton of stuff like that in the book. So it was fun to kind of take a razor and like a magnifying glass to recent history because the stuff didn't happen that long ago, and we're still within we're within 10 years of a lot of the stuff that occurred, but some stuff longer. And I think that also allowed some people to be more candid than they would have been or would be in the moment. So I've got some really cool material and stories and information from people on the record putting their names on stuff, which doesn't really happen, in our day to day
Yeah, I think
media
that
landscape.
that's crazy. I thought that the tanking era became so insane, like you said, when the Sixers really said that we're tanking. They were just so outright and honest about it. Like, we're not here to win games. And there were even moments at times where you're watching games and they'd be up and then they do automatic subs to see them go down. So I found that to be very, very interesting. I'm excited to check that book on out. So I bought that on Amazon yesterday when I found out we were gonna
Thank
get
you,
the
man.
yeah. So
Appreciate you.
yeah, I'm
Appreciate you.
excited. I'm excited to take that for a read. Couple more questions here on the Kings while I have you. Do you think that they're gonna make the playoffs?
I do. I think the numbers show it. I just saw a metric today, I believe, from Kirk Goldsberry that they've been 16th in defense over the last 5 or 10 games. I can't remember the sample size, but clearly that's an improvement from 27th or wherever it was back that week during the winning streak that I was there in town for. But their defense was still struggling. So if that can continue to progress and the offense stays at top five levels, which I do believe, and everyone I've talked to believes as well that is sustainable with the juice this team's playing with. Yeah, I think they're going to at least make. I think they're going to at least make the plan. But I mean, you get too close to a story when you start spending time around these people because you want them to be winning because then they're in a good mood when they're talking to you, and you also want them to be winning to make the story worthwhile, right? So I'm a little biased for sure, but I think honestly, I really do think they've got the talent and the ability to get the 6th seed outright and evade the play-in picture altogether. But If they don't, I think also, as I said to Minnesota Timberwolves people last year, and I said to some people with the Kings, um, this month or last month. I think getting a 7 seed home game or two home games as the 7 seed to win into the playoffs around that crowd, I think would be a great experience. So getting into the play-in tournament, I also don't think is like a kiss of death or necessarily a bad thing. I think it was really cool for Minnesota. Um, in front of that Target Center crowd to beat the Clippers in that playing game, and you got Patrick Beverly and everyone's celebrating like they won the championship. I
Yeah,
think that could be a very cool moment for a franchise like this. Um, I think that would be way more worthwhile than just getting a 6 seed and winning a couple games. I think if you win that game and then you go into the playoffs and win a couple games, then you got some real momentum that you've seen.
the hype
Didn't
is
really work.
real.
Yeah, it didn't really work for Minnesota, but New Orleans fought their way into the 8 seed, and now they're, I think, a top 4 seed in the West right now. So I hope that Sacramento can have that opportunity as well.
I recently wrote an article that just came out this morning for SB Nation, giving Mike Brown all the credit for the success of this team this year. And I was just wondering, do you believe that that's the same? Do you have that same like sentiment that the reason for the success of this Kings team starts from Mike Brown?
I think very rarely can you give one person all of the credit. That's not to discredit what Mike Brown has done, but De'Aaron Fox has taken massive leaps as a shot maker, right?
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
Kevin Herter and him being, he was leading the league in 3-point shooting to start. And Monte McNair, his front office, were the ones who put together Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox, where the whole league and I think um, it's funny. Coaches and execs were kind of split. I think a lot of coaches around the league that I talked to liked the Sabonis trade for Sacramento. Pretty much every executive I talked to across the board just killed Sacramento for making that deal, for giving up Halliburton. So, the Kings were always patting themselves on the back and like holding firm. Like we believe in that those two guys would have been maximized together. Clearly, Tyrese Halliburton had more trade value than De'Aaron Fox, and that was, I mean, that was made clear by Indiana that they were not going to make that deal without getting Halliburton back. And Domas, I think, has been fantastic and exactly what the Kings were hoping he would become or be as a partner for Fox. So I think it's been a collective effort. Mike Brown deserves a lot for sure, but it's been a lot of pieces coming together.
Yeah, the reason why I give all the credit to Mike Brown is because he just brought that voice of stability that just hasn't been there, been here in Sacramento in such a long time. And it was from the moment he came into that introductory press conference where he just said, "I want people to have values, I want to build trust, and I want to create goals for every single one of them." So I just thought that that presence that he had was what made him get all the credit in my mind. You took
Yeah,
the last question that I had from you, which was, who do you think won the trade, the Pacers or the Kings? After seeing the Kings win 137 to 114,
I think it's a win-win. That's how all trades should be.
yeah,
Honestly, I
it's
think
the
a lot of
rare
deals
time.
a lot of deals don't get done because people are trying to win the trade. I think, in the landscape that we're in right now, there's become just as much of a competition between front offices as there has been between those lines on the court. And I think because of that, it's definitely changed how things operate from a transaction market. And to me, it's been for the better on the whole, but I think it's also sparked some, like, I think a lot more trades don't get done that might have gotten done in a pre-Twitter era because there wouldn't have been an immediate grade reaction and blah blah blah. So I think people now are trying to always swindle the other team or get a good deal on the other team, or they're not budging on their asking price, and like, you're not getting my player if you don't meet that type of stuff. So um, I think the fact that both sides got better, that's how a trade should be. Like in the spirit of the league, I think, sure, like, it's a negotiation and that's competition in itself, and you need to be able to have your principles to not get swindled, but at the same time, like, just make a deal get done that benefits all parties. And I think more activity works, and then everyone improves. So I think, kudos to Sacramento and Indiana for finding a deal that was so polarizing like that, because to me, I think that shows exactly that the value of finding common ground to help both sides.
Jake Fischer of Yahoo Sports. joined us here on the King's Court. Thank you so much, brother, for joining us here on the show. I appreciate you so
Yeah,
much.
man. Thanks for
Great
having
work. I cannot wait till I get my book. It's supposed to be here tomorrow, so in the morning. So
me.
I should be able to read that with a cup of coffee. So I'm excited to do that. Uh,
There you
one last one before I let you go. The Kings play tomorrow. Are they getting a win?
Yeah, go
Light
Kings.
the
Light the beam.
beam! Light the beam! Jake
All right.
Fisher, man. Thank you so
See
much,
ya.
brother. You have a good one.